Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Modern Investor. Welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having an exceptionally wonderful day. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. There's a brand new video every single day. Isn't that insane? I know it is. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. I wonder where a lot of this is going to go. When I first got into crypto, I think, you couldn't have told me that we would be this far in where I believed we would be in 2025. I kind of foresaw governments, countries, even the idea of hyper Bitcoinization. It seemed like not a fever dream, but it seemed, very, very, very far into the future. I'm talking like 2040s, 2050s, that Bitcoin's just beginning to be accepted. I assumed that for the first couple of decades, we would have mainly us. I think I got used to really fast that the cryptocurrency market was just you and me. Not in a joking way either. I really mean it. Like, we were kind of all that we had. Like, there wasn't a BlackRock discussion. There wasn't a MicroStrategy. There weren't countries announcing they were mining Bitcoin, using Bitcoin, trading in Bitcoin. It just wasn't a thing. So I think a lot of this has kind of taken me aback in recent years, how much interest is now being paid in our market. And this is why you've heard me say a number of times, like, hey, don't forget, crypto's for us. So don't let don't let the rich people have all the fun. It's also for you and your family. So when we get a lot of accumulation news many times, this is where that kind of sentiment comes from. I've been in this market long enough that I remember it must have been the middle of 2017. I don't have an exact date. I remember Googling online, I was learning more. What is, really, I want to learn everything that I can. And I remember reading an article that said something, paraphrasing. It said something along the lines of Bitcoin is going to $1 million. And I was like, I think we had just hit 10,000 per coin. And I was like, how is that possible? What would that mean? Where would money be? What is Bitcoin the new money? I kept on reading new articles, and that was back in 2017. I started reading more articles about people who were like real original Bitcoin maximalists, not this new age kind of we want to own 17% of all the Bitcoin and that's not a bad thing kind of mantra. It was like, no. We need to make sure that Bitcoin expands across Latin America, across Africa, across Southeast Asia. We need billions of people in this market who aren't a part of the normal traditional financial system. People in Europe, people in North America, it would happen organically that people would just simply say, oh, cool, make money, and they would throw their money into it. It was this idea of a whole new system. What's kind of happened is all of that, but at a real accelerated rate. And the people who figured out that all of this is poised to potentially happen are the people who already have the money. This was maybe, oh gosh, I can't remember. I spoke about this briefly in one other recent video. Who knows which one, because there's one every single day. We were discussing what happens if Bitcoin actually ends up going to $1 million. And the idea of what that would do to the world's economy. Because understand, essentially all the money that's in Bitcoin came from somewhere. I know that sounds ridiculous, but a lot of times people still talk about Bitcoin as if it's some type of magical entity. Bitcoin's moving up. Bitcoin looks like it's going to do so and so. Bitcoin moves up because people put money into it. Bitcoin is at its current price because there are trillions of dollars flowing within its ecosystem. That's money that could have gone into gold, gone into silver, gone into stocks, gone into other securities, gone into purchases of land, gone into real estate. But the idea is that as Bitcoin becomes stronger, as more people buy it, as word of mouth and digital word of mouth spreads and its price goes up, people would choose to invest in Bitcoin more than other physical objects or items. Like, think about it. You are in the cryptocurrency market. Don't tell anyone how much crypto you have. It's no one's business but your own. You would never share with a stranger how much you have in your bank account. But think about it. What you have in crypto, it's not in Pokemon cards. It's not in art. You didn't choose to buy a brand new car. Like, you chose to put that, like, you are literally part of the system. What happens is, or what is expected to happen with this market is that as we've seen fiat getting worse, economic policies aren't getting any better. If you missed one of the other videos, we had, I think, 2 or 3 Japanese companies. One who makes clothes, one who I think does veneers. I'm not joking. Like, these are, we have all types now. Announced that they were all getting into Bitcoin because of their local currency's value depreciation. They said they can't take it anymore. They need some kind of an alternative. And the alternative that they chose was Bitcoin. And then these companies announced, we're putting millions into Bitcoin at 87,000. Bitcoin goes to 110,000. It paid off. So they start throwing more money into it, as do other investors. Bitcoin's price continues to go up, and it's basically a loop. Do you remember when we first, at the beginning of this year, started talking about Bitcoin staking? I told you a while ago, it was going to be a big thing. A lot of the energy that we've seen put towards Ethereum as of late has to do with the idea of the coin producing a yield. I buy this. I don't have to hold it. I don't have to really store it physically anywhere. It exists on the internet, and it makes me free money for as long as the network exists, which we can kind of assume is, and I air quote forever, because things on the internet, air quote forever. That's a huge incentive. Now, what happens when you have, let's say you're a company, and you make cheese, or you make clothing, or you make bread, or you whatever you're trying to do. And you go, we have an extra $1 billion just laying around. Do we put that into real estate and make sure that, we are going to get money from the real estate that we can then loop over into other investment opportunities that we choose to have? Or do we put that billion into Ether? We don't have to store the Ether in a warehouse, in a box somewhere. We don't have to worry about insurance on $1 billion worth of apartments. We don't have to worry about finding $1 billion worth of tenants and hope that they pay and hope that we get the rental return. So around summertime, I told you I was having some meal with friends, and we were talking about crypto. I have a lot of friends who are really into real estate. I myself, I love real estate, and I don't know if that'll ever fade or what. I love it. Like, I don't know if it's just the thing that I've been told since I was younger, but the idea of owning property, I really love it, as do my friends. And we were discussing, and 2 of my friends went, I've actually been thinking about just buying some crypto. I won't name which coin. And they said just kind of staking it. Because I went through the numbers, and the rental return that I would get is relatively similar to the staking rewards that I get. If crypto prices keep going in this direction, I'd essentially be able to double my money in a short period of time, and I can't double my money with the real estate. And I sat there almost flabbergasted because, one, I never thought I'd hear those words from these real estate people, and 2, this is the conversations that Bitcoin maximalists were having years ago. If you weren't here, if you weren't part of the channel, what have you, if you don't remember, years ago, one of the ideas was, let's say you buy a property at 200,000, random number, 200,000. And you see that the property has gone up to 240,000 in value. You made 40,000 on it in a good 6, 7 or so years. You go back in time and you could have bought $2,000 Bitcoin. One coin, $2,000, amazing. Within that same 7-year period, Bitcoin has gone up to like $89,000. That's a huge amount of money that you could have made if you had invested in crypto. That's the first asterisk. The second part is it has to do with the staking. I'm telling you, and I know that people won't pay attention, but that's for them. I've learned in life, it's the same exact phrase. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I used to think that was kind of funny when I was a kid. I was like, well, of course the horse would be thirsty. No, a lot of people in crypto, in life, are very thirsty for money. They want money. They want a secure position in finance and in life. You can place something right in front of them and they won't look at it. They won't understand it. They won't care to research it. And that's just the way that people are. You can't change anyone. So I know a lot of you out there have mentioned before in comments, you've tried having conversation with friends and family members and, trying to get them to understand. No, that's on them. You do if you've tried something 3 times and no one listens, understands, or wants to hear what you have to say, you've tried. You have tried to help those people. You tried to get them to buy XRP when it was 20 cents. You tried to get them to buy Bitcoin when it was under 10,000. You tried. Ethereum was $16. You told people, no one paid attention. Look at your bank account, look at theirs. And I mean that wholeheartedly. If you've done the right thing trying to help people and people don't want to listen, that's on them, not on you. So as we move further into this world of corporations, banks, entities, as I always say, buying more and more Bitcoin, my friends, the other asterisk, presented me with the shift. They showed me that years ago, all the Bitcoin maximalists, all of them, all like the original ones, the OGs, used to all say the same thing. At some point, people will realize I could have made more money in Bitcoin. My investment would have been more, air quote, secure if I had just invested in crypto. The money so and so and so made me more money in Bitcoin, and this becomes a gigantic feedback loop. It has to do with the idea of Bitcoin going to 1 million. You know how Bitcoin does an 8-9x in price from here to get to $1 million? It's by people foregoing other assets. It's by people. Remember we had last year, there were some hedge funds who announced that they were going to be selling off portions of their gold stocks and gold securities to buy Bitcoin. And I was like, it's starting. That's the beginning of it. We've had a number of gold investors. I've seen some people in the comment section, a lot of people do own gold. But I've seen people say now, I own gold and I own Bitcoin. That's money that would have gone into gold but went into BTC instead. The other part has to do with one of the largest asset classes that we currently know, and it's real estate. You get to a $22 trillion Bitcoin market cap, not by hopes and wishes and prayers. It's by the actions of others. It's by people realizing Bitcoin's at $189,000. I don't know if I kind of want to, I can also get a return on it as well. Okay. And they forego buying the home. Bitcoin goes to 360,000. You've doubled your money. But what happens to every investor when you see that your stock has doubled, your money has doubled, your so-and-so, you go, I wish I had put in more. It's always the same. We've all been there. Every single time I've bought art, every time I've bought something, I've always been like, oh, I should have bought another one. Like that kind of thing. We're moving quickly into this world, and I know that. It's not that I don't think that. I know that a lot of people aren't prepared for this. I mean, the vast majority of people. Do you remember? What was that? There was this, I think, were they a Mexican company? I think so. There was a company 2 months ago. I believe they were a real estate company in Mexico. They announced, when I saw that, I remember my jaw dropped and I was like, holy guacamole. They announced that they were selling $1 billion US dollars, $1 billion worth of their real estate holdings. Do you remember why? It was to buy Bitcoin. And they said over the next couple of years, they planned on selling an additional $10 billion worth of holdings to exclusively buy Bitcoin. That's where we are. That's how you get to $1 million. Can you imagine how we get to $10 million per Bitcoin? It creates a whole new world. It creates a whole new sector. And I know I'm rambling here, but this is very, very important. It's the idea of having, 0.1 Bitcoin. We went over that before. The whole idea, normal people can't afford it. If normal people don't have $1,000 laying around, they do not have 10,000. Tenth of a Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes to $1 million, what equate to? You have 100K just sitting there in Bitcoin. If Bitcoin supply continues to contract, if the halvings continue to happen, if these companies continue buying huge amounts of Bitcoin, we will eventually get to a $10 million Bitcoin. You have a tenth of a Bitcoin. Guess what, buddy boy? You have the equivalent of $1 million. Now, what happens when you start staking that and you have passive income forever and you don't have to worry about finding tenants? You don't have to work I think this, sorry if I'm too forceful as I'm saying all of this, but it makes me think as a real estate investor, think about it. It changes the entire concept of what money is and how we interact with money and assets in the future. Former Coinbase CTO, his name is Balaji Srinivasan, has stated that the rise of Bitcoin is likely to make it the primary store of value in the future, replacing real estate in the process. He gave these comments during a Bitcoin Asia conference in Hong Kong. This has been a thing for a while, and I'll dare even sprinkle something else on it. There will probably be other crypto in that basket as well. One of the widely held current conceptions of this market is that we are going to exist in the world with multiple crypto, but similar to how we see Bitcoin's price is this comparative to XRP's, that balance or imbalance, if you will continue to exist. So we will probably, more than likely, unless Bitcoin gets to 3.7 million transactions per second and has 16 layers on, layer 2s and layer 3s and layer 4s, we're going to exist in a world with multiple other chains. This is kind of the idea. But percentage-wise, Bitcoin will be at the forefront of everything, while banks are building stable coins on top of Ethereum and XRP, while Solana is being used for this, while Tron is buying bananas and all the other things that they're currently doing. This is kind of the idea. This has been a thing for a while, and now we're seeing it happen. Remember the other one? There was another company who literally, they mine gold and silver. They announced that all their future profits are going to be used to just buy Bitcoin. We're witnessing this at a corporate level now. That's the really fascinating part. He said, and I do quote, "When Bitcoin wins, real estate falls in real terms. People will actually stop using houses as a store of value and use Bitcoin for all that, leaving houses, apartments, and providing a utility only," end quote. We had this discussion about 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, it was randomly, it must have been 2020, 2021. I remember us discussing this. And people in the comment section were, I don't want to use the term angry, but like the concept couldn't grasp their mind. It's because it's all that we've ever known. Us, like, at the age that we are, we've only known real estate as is. Real estate as an actual investment, air quotes, hasn't been a thing since the actual early 90s. Before that, real estate always took a backseat to many other investments, especially the stock market. When it came to as far as having ETFs or having REITs, real estate investment trusts, it wasn't a thing in the 90s. Around 92, 93 is when people began to go, maybe there's something with this. We exist in a world where the early 2000s, what's the word? Made it concrete that real estate was a thing because we lived when we were younger. That's when real estate prices really began to pump. It's because of the early 2000s that we know real estate as an asset class. It wasn't that way extensively during these 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. It just wasn't. That's why houses were so cheap, part of it. And then you get this sector where everyone's buying up all these homes and multiple homes. Even after the crash of 2008, we still knew after prices fall, we can buy all this stuff up. Why? Because the prices will go back up. I watch a lot of these real estate shows and stuff, and you see people talking about real estate. We got this for $330,000. It's now worth $800,000. What that does to your mind is tells you that's an asset class. That is something strong that I need to put my money into. In the 90s, if in 1989 someone said, do you know that in 30 years real estate is going to be a $100 trillion market? Real estate's going to take over everything. Do you remember, back it up for 1 second. Do you remember Larry Fink? For those of you who weren't here, Larry Fink is the CEO of BlackRock, the company that owns the world. Do you remember what he said about real estate? You can Google this because we went over this on the channel. Larry Fink said Bitcoin is going to eclipse real estate within the United States. I repeat one more time. He said within the next decade or so, Bitcoin's market cap is going to be larger than the entirety of real estate within the United States. When we talk about stuff and we go over this news, it's not because I'm bored and I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. Do you understand the significance or the idea of the thing that we've known for the last 30 or so years, 30 plus years, as a mega asset class, taking a back seat to Bitcoin, something that you have access to right now at a low price comparatively? 100K to 10 million, that's definitely a bargain. This has been echoed multiple times across, people within the cryptocurrency space. The idea basically would be, in essence, you would, in a deflationary world with Bitcoin, I'm pointing at you, you'd be able to actually own, a home in San Diego, one in Montreal, one somewhere in Mexico, one somewhere in Italy, because prices would be very low. You'd be able to have exactly what you needed, and your store of value would then be in crypto. That's passively making you money. That is the wealth transfer. That is the shift. So people kind of think this idea of no, my wealth is gone. No, at some point in theory, you would have to decide when to step over the line. When am I putting more money into crypto to not have to find a tenant as opposed to buying a property to find a tenant? Do you understand the significance of a company announcing we're trying to sell $11 billion worth of our real estate to buy Bitcoin instead? That's what I said, and I'll reiterate this again. When you talk about like staking Bitcoin, understand how big this is. I know I can feel it. I feel people rolling their eyes because you refuse to understand exactly how big that all of this is. So many people in this space, you're only here for a year. You're here for maybe a year and a half. You want to make big money and then you leave, and then you won't understand in 2030 and 2040 how the market's still going up, how people are becoming richer. You won't want to get it. It'll be anger and annoyance that replaces your understanding instead. It's the same, once again, if you try to tell people to invest, and you've seen over the last couple of years how much money you've made in crypto. When you talk to those people who you try to get into the market, what do they say? Oh, must be nice. Yeah, I saw the market going up. Good for you, buddy. You did it. And then they'll start talking about how they can't pay their bills, how they can't do this, how they can't afford that. Does that sound familiar? Of course it does, because that's the normal, natural way that it goes. You can hear that change is happening. You can see that change is happening, and you refuse to be a part of the change. We get this news every single day. There's a new video here every 24 hours. Imagine hearing this every single day and then still folding your arms and going, well, we'll see what happens. I remember years ago telling my friends to get into crypto. I remember in 2016 at the end of the year when I made this channel, I remember being like, have you guys looked at this crypto thing? It sounds kind of interesting. I was making videos fumbling. I just starting out. I was learning the space with all of you. You know how many people listened to me? Zero people. It took about 5 or 6 years for, I think, three people to actually in my life to listen to me. 3. When you see that all this motion and this movement is happening, you heard, you saw, you read. The White House is going to start buying Bitcoin. The president of the United States' crypto wallet has a huge amount of Bitcoin. This company is buying Bitcoin. That country just announced with 12 other countries, they're all mining Bitcoin. Why are they mining Bitcoin? Why are they spending $128 million to make Bitcoin mining farms? Why aren't they putting $128 million into making new homes? Like luxury homes, like in Dubai, making luxury homes for rich people to move and making a brand new rich city. Call it a rich city. Why are they choosing to do this with Bitcoin? And then you hear the news, you hear the logic, and you go, well, whatever, we'll see what happens. And then we'll see what happens. And then you go, well, okay, Bitcoin's at 900,000, but it's not going to hit 12 million. It's the same loop over and over and over. It doesn't mean the end of your money, the end of your investments. It is the literal transformation of the way that we hold wealth. This was the same exact thing with NFTs. There's I told you before, there are tons of museums around the world who are buying NFTs. Why? Because it is a new way to add provenance, to store and show this form of art. If it's digital and it's going to last forever, paintings and drawings don't always last forever. Houses don't always last forever. Bitcoin, in essence, as long as we have people mining it and validating transactions, Bitcoin could essentially last for the next 500 years, in theory. Plus, people there's this discussion, well, what happens when there's no more Bitcoin to mine? It's network consensus. If everyone on the network votes and says, okay, now Bitcoin is proof of stake, or Bitcoin does so-and-so. Who knows in 115 years what we come up with? Bitcoin will still be around. But it's this idea of having to move forward, having to change, having to push forward. I told you. I remember I had a friend. This guy, told you this years ago. This guy I knew, he used to always play World of Warcraft. And I remember him telling me about the gold in World of Warcraft. And he was selling it one day for real money. And I was like, but the money's not real. He's like, no, like it's in-game currency. And I was like, okay, you're crazy. I remember this must have been 2012, maybe 2011. I went to go visit him, and I remember him telling me about Bitcoin. He was like, yes, it's like World of Warcraft gold. I rolled my eyes so far into the back of my head, I saw the future, because I was like, why, how did, what do you know? Like, and I took out paper money and was like, this is money, because I refused to understand it. It took me 5 more years to be like, okay, what is this? Let's see where it goes. What's about to happen with this? Yeah, we're entering a brand new world. I don't think it's going to be for everyone. I think there's going to be a lot of resistance. I think a lot of people are going to reject anything until they kind of jump on board. It's this. I remember. Do you remember being younger? I remember we had the internet in school, and I remember there were teachers who refused to use it. I remember in the 90s, teachers who refused to use the internet. It was a whole thing. They wanted it, oh my gosh, especially when everyone had a PC. Do you remember when everyone had a PC? And I remember we had to start, some teachers were like, okay, type up your essays and hand them in. Do you remember the teachers who still wanted like handwritten essays? I remember it took them years. Now the idea of like people not having computers, not using the internet for resources, a library? You have an actual dictionary like physically still in your house? Encyclopedias? You mean like the set of 40, like those big books? It makes no sense now. Well, that's how the world changes. So make sure you are actually part of that change. Yeah, everyone, I think that's going to do it for this video. I sincerely hope that you've all enjoyed. I hope that you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever the heck you might be. I do hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting the channel, and I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.